Hello, I'm Bianca Borges for Milk Street at Home. Hard to believe that it is time to think about Thanksgiving. Even though this year will be very different for so many of us, there is one tradition that we can maintain without hesitation, and that is making a special meal, no matter how many people you're serving. But before the day of feasting, I'm here to talk about a few days beforehand. You might be surprised at how many little things you can prep in advance that will save you a huge amount of time on the day of cooking. Not only time, but it will save you mess and cleanup, and it will bring a lot of pleasure to the cooking that's going to happen on that day. So let's start with 3 days out. Up to 3 days before Thanksgiving, there are certain things you can prep. Now, I'm assuming you have done the shopping already, and if you haven't, get that done by 3 days ahead. You can do all of the shopping this far in advance if you haven't already. So let's start with carrots. Cut the ends off, get them peeled, give them a quick rinse, and then wrap them in dry paper towels and store them in a baggie so they're ready to go when you're ready to cook. Same with celery. Cut the butt end off, rinse those stalks really well. If they're too long to go into the baggie, cut them in half, wrap them in paper towels, and then put them in the same baggie with the carrots if there's room. If you're making your own stalk, save the butt end of the celery. Just give it a good wash, add it to the stock pot, and it'll add a lot of flavor to your stock. For green beans, go ahead and pinch off the stem end, give them a quick rinse, wrap them in dry towels, and put them in a baggie as well. Brussels sprouts, get the stalk end cut off. If you know you're going to be cutting them in half for your recipe, go ahead and cut them in half now. Give them a quick wash, wrap them in paper towels, and store them in the fridge. However, if you are going to be shredding your Brussels sprouts or slicing them thinly, don't do that in advance. Store them whole in the baggie and then shred them right before you're going to cook them. For leafy greens, things such as kale, chard, collard greens, beet greens, mustard greens, any of those leafy greens that have a long hard stalk on them, remove the leaves from the stalk now. Give them a good wash in a strainer basket. Shake as much liquid off as you can. Wrap the leaves in dry paper toweling and put them in a baggie. You can pack them in pretty tight because we know how they expand once they're off the stalk. Then when you're ready to cook, there's no bigger pleasure than taking a bag of washed and dried greens out of the fridge and starting to cook. If you plan to cook those stalks with the greens, save those in the baggie as well. Or if you're making stock, add the stalks to the stock and that'll add a lot of flavor. Herbs, even herbs can be washed in advance. You'd be surprised how much time this will save. As you know, when you're washing herbs, before you cut them, you have to blot them dry anyway. So why not get that done in advance? Get the biggest bowl you have, fill it with cold water, take the whole bunch of fresh herbs and plunge it in and out of the water a few times. Shake those leaves while they're underneath the water to get rid of any dirt or sand that might be clinging underneath. Then shake off as much of the moisture as you can. Spread them out on dry paper toweling, roll them up, and store them in a baggie. Then when you go to cook, they will be dry and ready to go. You can't cut wet herbs. It's very difficult and it does dilute some of their flavor. So herbs always have to be dried anyway. You may as well do that in advance. Things like leeks and scallions, these you can actually get some prep done in advance as well. Simply cut off the little hairs of that root end, but leave the bulb intact. For scallions, remove those outer layers like you normally would. Give them a wash, wrap them in paper toweling and in a baggie. For leeks, those need sort of a deeper cleaning. So you've kept the bulb end intact, slice the whole length through lengthwise, and they will stay together in halves. But then, as you're washing them under running water, you can get in between all those layers where the sand sometimes gets trapped. So then wrap those in towels and store them in a baggie as well. So I just want to take a quick note because I've talked a lot about paper towels and baggies. And we've been using a lot so far if you do all that prep. But remember, everything you've done so far is clean. So on the day of cooking, as you're unpacking those baggies, you've got some really nice damp paper towels to help you with cleanup all day long. And those baggies are also clean, so they're easily reusable. So let's move to 2 days before. Up to 2 days before, you might be surprised to know you can make your mashed potatoes completely in advance. Mashed potatoes happen to reheat really, really well. So go ahead and cook them in the pot, add the cream or the milk, add the butter, salt and pepper, whatever you're going to add for flavorings, and then mash them completely. Get them as if you were ready to serve them, but instead let them cool down, put them in an airtight container, and keep them in the fridge for a few days. The one exception at this point is herbs. If you're planning to add fresh herbs to your mashed potatoes, wait. Don't do that now. Wait until you're reheating them. So on the day of, all you need to do is take them out of the container, put them in a pot, add a splash of milk, and then reheat them over medium to medium high, giving them a good stir pretty frequently. Now here's the thing, they're going to seem really, really stiff, and they will be stiff, they're cold. So just be patient, keep stirring, keep heating, and within 3 to 5 minutes, you'll feel them starting to get soft. Now, once you see steam coming off the mashed potatoes, you'll probably notice that they're very smooth and creamy again. If they're not smooth and creamy again, don't despair. Just keep stirring. Stir pretty vigorously, and within 30 seconds or so, you're going to see them come together and get really creamy again. Now, at that point, you can add your fresh herbs if you're using those. And then once they're piping hot, they are ready to serve. You can do the same thing with sweet potatoes, like if you're making a mashed sweet potato casserole. Get those cooked, mashed, flavored, however you'd like. Store them in an airtight container in the fridge, and then the day of, simply spread them in the baking dish, put whatever topping on there you would normally put, pop them in the oven. So these all sound like really little things, but you'd be surprised at how they add up to a huge savings of time. So day of, you're simply going into your fridge, you're pulling out vegetables, herbs, greens that are ready to start cooking. You don't have to wash, you don't have to make a mess, and you don't have to spend a lot of time doing that. All those little things together will make the day of cooking so much more pleasurable, will save you time, and you'll be more relaxed and stress-free as well. So happy Thanksgiving and happy prep.